Well, lawyers for victims of the Catholic Church may sue the Vatican for access to material they say may shed light on the dialogue between Rome and American bishops as well, and to see if there was any official hush policy. Meanwhile, Pope Benedict opened Holy Week celebrating Palm Sunday as the church molestation scandal continues to keep the Vatican on the defensive for the institutional crisis that one Catholic newspaper is calling, quote, the largest in centuries. All right, now we're going to have a fair and balanced debate. Yesterday I asked Christopher Hitchens, author of God is Not Great, since this has been going on for a long time, how has the church been able to handle the scandals this way?
Well, partly because a man named Joseph Ratzinger, when he was a cardinal, from 2001 onwards, was given the job as head of the Sacred Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith of covering it up. I mean, we now have the letters that he wrote in that capacity to every bishop in the church, saying, in effect, this is all to be kept within our own conclave. You're not to involve the secular authorities, and making it very evident that the main priority was not justice for the victims, but protection of the criminals. That the only thing they were worried about was the damage done to the church, not to the children. It also turns out that he was individually responsible at least twice, once in his own diocese of Munich in Germany, where a priest called Father Hulleman was on his watch. He was copied on the memo. There are claims he didn't see it, but his name is right on the memo saying, what are we going to do about this man, who was reassigned so he could work again with children. And now the even more terrible case, I think, maybe the most horrible yet, the poor deaf children of Wisconsin, in the school where Father Murphy was operating, were pleading with the Vatican, pleading with Ratzinger's office to say, what are we going to do about this? And nothing. They were told, basically, don't do a thing. And Murphy wrote personally to Ratzinger, saying, look, I know I did all this, but I'm an old man now, and please leave me alone. And compassion was felt only for him, this terrible criminal.
Christopher, the Pope has plenty of supporters who are coming forward to say, it's not what it seems to be, that he has been somebody who has actually been tougher than most on this. You cite evidence to the contrary. Do you think he pays in any way?
The evidence is perfectly plain. They can't say that now. All the documents show that he's individually and institutionally responsible. As a result, here's the big question. Last week he made a statement in the form of a pastoral letter to the people of Ireland. The response, which you've read, it's in every report of the matter, says people are bewildered. Why doesn't he call for anyone to be disciplined? Why hasn't he called for anyone at least to be fired, if not prosecuted? Well, the answer to that is this. If he was to do that as Pope, he'd be opening the way for his own impeachment. Because if that was the precedent, if people who had knowledge of this and covered it up, or who had been reassigning dangerous pederasts and rapists so they could work again with children. If people like that were to be punished, he'd be in the firing line. He'd be next. So it's not a bureaucratic crisis, you see, or just a political one or institutional one. It's a moral crisis for any Catholic with any conscience. This man is not just the CEO. They claim he is the vicar of Christ on earth. So the question now is raised, what Christ has a man like this, with all this on his hands, as his vicar?
And certainly with more and more information that we're learning, the case gets curiouser and curiouser. Christopher Hitchens, thank you so much. Not curiouser, no, excuse me, no, clearer and clearer that the head of the church is directly responsible for the rape and torture of children. All right, Christopher Hitchens, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we're going to have a fair and balanced debate on that very, very controversial issue. William Donohue is the president of the Catholic League, is going to join us shortly, give him a chance to respond and share his side of this debate. That's coming up. Now, earlier in the show, we brought you one side of the very heated debate over the Catholic Church's response to the abuse scandal. Now we bring you the other side. Catholic League President William Donohue, who feels that the media criticism of the Catholic Church has been unfair, joins us now live to talk about it. Great to see you today, sir.
Thank you so much for having me, Sharon.
All right, you heard the very strong language that came from our earlier guest, Christopher Hitchens, talking about the fact that he believes there is documentation to prove that the current Pope knew a lot more about the abuse scandal than he had let on before, and that he didn't handle it appropriately. Your response?
Yes, let's just take what he says is the most important case, and I probably would agree with him on that, and that's about it, which is the case of Father Lawrence Murphy out of Wisconsin. Here's what Christopher Hitchens told you. He told you that there was an abuse of deaf boys, and the Pope learned about it, Joseph Ratzinger at the time, and did nothing about it. Here's what he didn't tell you. The alleged abuse took place in the 1950s. The victims' families never bothered to report this to the police until the mid-1970s. The Vatican didn't find out about the case until 1996. Hitchens never told you about that. In 1996, Cardinal Ratzinger ordered an investigation of what happened apparently in the 50s and 60s. And by the way, in the mid-1970s, when the victims' families contacted the police, they investigated this case and found nothing to it. They dropped it. Now, we're into 1996. The Vatican finds out about it. Ratzinger goes ahead and orders an investigation. And during that 2-year period, while they're investigating, Father Murphy dies. Now, what exactly was Ratzinger supposed to do? Where is the wrongdoing? Hitchens would have you believe that they found out early on and did nothing about it. That is simply factually untrue. Regarding the case in Munich, it is true that in 1980, a guy by the name of Peter Hulleman was given therapy, and the people below Ratzinger said, should we give him therapy? He said yes. It was in a first offense. And that was the drill of the day, Shannon. It is so interesting to me now that the liberal establishment, which always said that people can be, quote, fixed, send them to the psychiatrist, send them to the psychologist, we can fix them and put them back. That's exactly what happened. Now, what happened after that? We don't even know whether or not Ratzinger knew that after that he got reinstated, but even if he did, wasn't that part of the norm? My point is this. This is being driven by Jeffrey Anderson, who's a lawyer who has made something like hundreds of millions of dollars off of the Catholic Church and suing, teaming up with the New York Times, going back a half a century, looking for dirt in the Catholic Church, while all other secular and religious organizations get a pass. What I'm saying is that there's a hunt going on, and I think I know why.
Well, let me ask you this. You know, when you hear about these cases, obviously the average person on the street, whether they're a part of the Catholic Church or not, is horrified by some of what they hear, and certainly you can understand that reaction. Is there a way that the Church can better manage its response that would maybe reassure people within the Church and without that it is doing everything it can?
Well, first of all, between 2008 and 2009, the last annual report dealing with this problem in the Catholic Church, out of 40,000 priests, there were 6, count them, 6 accusations. I don't know if any of them are true. Now, if you want to put the Catholic Church in 2010 up against the Orthodox Jews from all what we've been reading about in the New York Times, you want to put them up against the public school industry and what they do there. And how about the rubber rooms in New York City where the molesters are assigned makeshift administrative work with full benefits and salary? I think the Catholic Church is the model of the way to handle things today. As for the past, I would have preferred a hardline conservative approach, but no, they took the therapeutic approach recommended by the liberals. They've managed to everything they put their hands on, they've managed to screw up.
All right, William Donohue, we thank you very much for providing the other side of this very important debate. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, President Obama